Well, thanks so much, Shannon, for organizing this. And thanks, everybody, and a big welcome to everybody for joining this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. We're going to talk today about some of the practical tools and resources for advancing the landscape movement. And this is, we're going to kind of talk about some of the things and actual tools and resources that are out there for you to start working with and using in your landscape partnership and your landscape effort. So let's go ahead and get started. So just a brief agenda, an overview of what we'll be talking about today. First, I'm going to give a quick overview of 1,000 landscapes for 1 billion people. I'm going to talk about the origin and of these practical tools and resources that you're going to see today. And then I'm going to hand it over to a team of 3 different groups, first focusing on learning modules. Then we're going to talk about landscape finance. And then we're going to talk about the digital platform Terrasso. We're going to follow that up with a Q&A. So you'll have time to ask questions and interact with us. And then we'll do a closing and there'll be a short survey at the end. So that's the agenda for today. Thank you again for everybody who's joining. Like Shannon said, please put your name, your organization, if you want to, what landscape you're working in, to let us know who's all out there. So first, a big shout out to all the partners that are part of 1,000 Landscapes for 1 billion people. We are an initiative and a partnership with a steering committee that consists of Common Land, Climate Kick, Conservation International, UNDP, Eco Agriculture Partners, Rainforest Alliance, and Tech Matters. But there are a whole diversity of partners that have been contributing their expertise, their knowledge, their resources, their time, and their energy towards the development of some of the tools and resources that you're going to see today. So it really does, kind of the thing about 1,000 Landscapes, the main value add is that we are a collective of some great minds in the field of landscape management coming together to develop resources and tools that can be used, that are practical, that can be used in the field and mobilized for a whole number of different landscape initiatives globally. So 1,000 Landscapes for 1 billion people, we call ourselves a radical collaboration. So what does that mean? We're like I said, we're coming together and we're sharing insights and we're bringing our best knowledge and tools together. We're comprised of NGOs, companies, and global organizations working together to dramatically accelerate landscape scale efforts to sustain and restore ecosystems, build rural prosperity, and confront climate change. Our goal is that by 2030, landscape partnerships are delivering sustainable landscape solutions to 1,000 landscapes for 1 billion people, contributing powerfully to the Sustainable Development Goals and related national and international commitments for tackling food and water insecurity, biodiversity loss, land degradation, and climate change.
Thanks, Tom. Can I just give a quick overview of the interpretation tool for folks who are joining us in Spanish?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, great. So thank you guys so much. We have an interpreter for those Spanish speakers. If you would like to listen to this webinar in Spanish, you can click the 3 dots on your screen and go to interpretation. And from there, you can select Spanish. So we have a wonderful interpreter, Franklin, who is joining us. Please, if you'd like to join us in Spanish, you can click on the globe or the planet. That will take you to the Spanish. I'm going to go ahead and close the chat now. But for those of you who are interested during this session, if you would like to ask questions, please feel free. Again, if you click on those 3 dots on your screen, there is the Q&A function. Please feel free to ask questions, and we will bring all of those to light during the Q&A section. Thank you so much.
Right. No, thanks so much, Shannon. Kind of, I'll pick off where I left off. I was talking about a series of problems and challenges and why 1,000 Landscapes for 1 billion people was formed. We have identified this term polycrisis for these interconnected global challenges that we're seeing: poverty, ecosystem degradation, unsustainable economies, climate change, and biodiversity loss. And what the integrated landscape management and for returns process is saying, that you can't address all these problems in silos. You can't address them all as one problem unto themselves. You need to have an integrated landscape solution, and that is really the key and the missing link in solving some of these problems globally, is that we need to have these integrated landscape solutions. And in our minds, in our thinking, is that to deliver this integrated landscape approach, you need to have strong landscape partnerships, to have locally led initiatives comprised of different NGOs, of different businesses, agencies, and organizations that are working together to think about their landscape, what some of the problems are, and what are some innovative solutions to tackle those problems. That is really the core problem and framework that we're using for the development of some of the tools and resources that you're going to see today. They're really meant to support landscape partnerships to walk through a process to deliver solutions to some of these problems. Over the past 5-10 years, we've seen this a remarkable growth in landscape initiatives. I've been in this field for almost 30 years, and it started as kind of an academic and large national program thinking about how to do things at a landscape scale. But it's really started to shift towards locally led efforts, that we found that is the best way to make these landscape initiatives more sustainable over time. So we're starting to see this proliferation, and what is needed is that there needs to be a strong foundation on knowledge and tools and resources to support landscape approaches. I want to make it clear that 1000 Landscapes just isn't about tools and resources. We're also about thinking about the broader framework of integrated landscape management and leadership, financing and funding, and some of the glue that kind of keeps the use of these tools and resources together. We realize, and that is again kind of getting to the core reason and the origin story of some of these tools, is that we've identified a series of major barriers to success. And this happened over a 10-year process with the Landscape, People, Food, and Nature program that was led by Eco Agriculture Partners. And there's also a lot of other literature reviews that look at the different barriers that are out there. And so there's highly fragmented, disconnected support, little access to tools and services. It seems that the data revolution is not focused particularly on the needs of landscape partnerships, and that local priorities ignored by policymakers. Maybe they're thinking at larger regional or national or global scales, but they're not thinking about the local priorities. So what tools and resources can be supported, can be used, deployed to support some of these landscape partnerships? And of course, inadequate funding for landscape partnerships is a consistent issue. And so you'll see a little bit today about some of the resources that we've developed to address those. This has been a very user-centric approach that we've, so what you're going to see today is the result of 4 to 5 years of working actively in landscapes globally. You see 23 of them here on the map, where we've worked to co-design, listen to what some of the needs are. This isn't a group of organizations coming together and saying, you need X, Y, and Z. This is really listening to the local partnerships, hearing what they need. So what you're going to see today is kind of a version 1.0 of a set of tools and resources that we've developed over time to support this. We realize that there needs to be evolution of some of these tools and resources as well. So we're definitely thinking about that in the future. Kind of the last comment I want to last few slides are going to be focused on integrated landscape management, and that is the journey that we're hoping to support landscape partnerships through. ILM, integrated landscape management, is meant to be kind of there's a lot of different landscape approaches that are out there, and it's kind of a amalgamation of different landscape approaches that have been developed. And these are kind of the core 5 elements that are essential to almost any successful landscape partnership. First is the developing shared understanding, vision and planning, developing a landscape plan, of course, taking action, and then importantly, learning and impact. So what you're going to see today is tools that are meant to support the journey of landscape partnerships through integrated landscape management. And so why are we doing this? It's great to talk about an integrated landscape management process and develop tools and resources, but really at the end of the day, we are trying to impact things that we feel that have been lost in the landscape. So what we want to get at is what we call the 4 returns. And this is a concept that the 1000 Landscapes Initiative has developed around. we want the degraded landscape lacks inspiration for the people that are living in the landscape. So return on inspiration, social return, creating jobs, businesses, networks, natural returns, restoring the health, resilience, and prosperity of landscapes, and then, of course, financial returns. So this isn't about protected areas per se or conservation. It's about the full landscape and integrated landscape management, how we can integrate economy and natural returns together for a broader landscape health. And so my last slide here before I turn it over to Zena is we have this practical guide to integrated landscape management is out there. And then to complement, some of the three sets of tools that you're going to see today, we also have an integrated management landscape tool guide. We realize that there have been a lot of developments around tools in the past. And so this is kind of a synthesis of some of those tools and ways that it can be used. So with that, hopefully that gives you a sense of where we're going with this webinar today. And I'll hand it over to Zena to talk about some of the learning modules that have been developed. Thank you so much, Zena.
And thank you, Tom, for the introduction and framing our work. And hello, everyone. My name is Zena Burgers, and I work for Common Land. And today I'm presenting from the Rainforest Alliance office, and I'm presenting on behalf of the Capacity Strengthening Design team. And the mission of our team is simple in a way. We want to make the work of landscape facilitators easier and more impactful to make sure that they can help the stakeholders implement integrated landscape management in their landscape. What we mean by landscape facilitators, because they go by many names, is that they are the people who lead workshops or training sessions with local stakeholders. And landscape facilitators can be working for support organizations or can be very involved individuals in a landscape. And to support these facilitators, we as a team designed adaptable learning modules to help them deliver integrated landscape management sessions. Okay, about those modules. Each module addresses a different aspect of integrated landscape management. Some are related to outputs of the process wheel that you see presented here, like creating a shared vision or creating a stakeholder map. And other modules are about foundational competencies that we identified that are needed throughout the whole process, like understanding diversity and inclusion or ecological flows. But what all modules have in common is that they share a diversity of perspectives. We incorporated both local and global perspectives, and in each session, we encourage participation and knowledge sharing. The format of these sessions is either in person or online. The in-person sessions bring stakeholders together from the same landscape, and the aim is to create a tangible output, like a partnership agreement. And these sessions are very hands-on, they're participatory, they're very engaging, and they usually last for about a day. On the other hand, we have the online sessions, and they focus on sharing and exchanging knowledge around a specific topic. The participants can be from different landscapes. They might be your colleagues or other people that are used to online meetings, and they usually last about 1.5 hours. They're still very interactive. They're not your typical boring online meeting. They're engaging, but they don't aim to produce a tangible output. They focus on deepening knowledge and enthusing people about the topic. And these online sessions can easily be transformed into in-person sessions or into hybrid formats. Okay, enough talking. Let's walk through an example so you know what we actually did and how you can use it. Imagine you're a facilitator and you want to co-create a stakeholder map with diverse stakeholders from your landscape, and you want to do it in an in-person session. What you see on the screen is what you will find on our website. And you see 4 blue buttons in the in-person box. And those are the resources that you have access to: a facilitator's guide, a slide deck, flip chart examples, and a theory handout. I'll explain each of them to you. The theory handout is your starting point for a deep dive into the session's content. It contains all the theoretical information that you'll cover, and it will help you feel prepared and confident about the topic. It also includes additional resources if you want to take an even deeper dive. And this document is for you, but you can also share it with your participants, of course, if you feel that they need more information. We currently have a theory handout for the stakeholder mapping module, and we want to develop more for the other modules as well. But in the meantime, you can use the online sessions, the slides, and the facilitation guide of the online sessions to help you prepare the content of the session. The second resource that we have for you is the facilitation guide. A facilitation guide is kind of your roadmap for delivering an in-person session, and it's divided into 3 parts. Part 1 covers the basic information like learning outcomes and logistics. Part 2 is a high-level overview of the session in a table format. You will find the timing, a brief description, goals, materials for each activity, and this will help you understand the flow of the session. But of course, that's not enough to actually deliver a session. So that's why we also have part 3. There we break down each activity with precise instructions, facilitation tips, and background information. It's quite a comprehensive document. So if you open it, don't worry. It might feel like a lot, but it's really designed to guide you through it step by step. Then, of course, every session needs also visual support. So we developed, and I'm not going to the next slides. Yes, thank you. You'll find flip chart examples that you can recreate on your own paper and a slide deck. And you can choose to use both or a combination. I personally prefer to use flip charts only because it makes a session more interactive and engaging. But of course, it's up to you to decide which kind of visual support you feel most comfortable with. And the facilitation guide will indicate when to use each flip chart or slides. And of course, you can customize the materials by adding your own names, your logos, or make any other changes that you need or like. You can look for the white speech bubbles in the slides. They indicate where to make those changes. So this is the whole package, the facilitation guide, the theory handout, the flip chart, and the slide deck. And we hope that this can help you as a landscape facilitator to deliver sessions in your landscape. We tested those packages, of course, in different landscapes. And one of the test users was Crystal Bottinga from the Ginkgo Foundation. She works with a landscape in Tanzania, and she's here in the webinar as well. And Crystal told me the 1000 Landscapes module enabled us to organize our first workshops in a landscape, offering the flexibility to tailor relevant elements into an engaging and educational experience. This helped us inspire and engage stakeholders, sparking their interest in a landscape-based approach. So I hope this will convince you to take a look at the materials yourself. And if you think they're useful for you, you can easily download them from our website. You can look for the blue buttons, click on it, and then the files will open in Google Drive, for which you don't need an account. You click on File and then Download, and then the files are all yours to use. And we design them on a global level, but of course we don't know your context. So we encourage you to adapt the materials to fit your context. You can add local examples, your stories, you can reorder activities or remove activities that are not relevant for you. We also have a bonus tip. We made the modules modular by design, so you can mix activities from different sessions to create your own unique package. For example, if your participants need a refresher on basic ILM concepts before making a shared vision, you can just pull the activities from the Introduction to ILM module and put them in your session. Feel free to play with it and make it your own. Also, what I just showed you might be enough to support very experienced facilitators, but we know that not every landscape has this internal facilitation capacity. That's why we also offer a 5-day in-person training to help build these facilitation skills, to make sure that people feel confident and are actually equipped to use these materials. We're also in the process of developing more support for each module. We're exploring options like self-paced online content, virtual support for specific activities, or potentially additional in-person training, but we're not there yet. So keep a look on the website and it might pop up in the future. We currently have the materials for 6 in-person and 6 online modules. And in the future, we want to design more on topics like partnership agreements, landscape finance, conflict resolution. But that's for the future. But we already wanted to share the modules that we have available now. So I think the link is already shared in the chat. You can take a look at the website and see what's available for you. And if you decide to use these materials, we would love to hear your feedback. Although we tested almost all of these modules in different landscapes, there's always room for improvement. So if you've used them, please take a moment to share your thoughts in the form on the website or contact one of us directly. Thank you for listening, and let me know if you have any questions. Back to you, Tom.
Right. Thanks so much, Zena. I'll hand it over to Seth and Aaron to talk about integrated landscape finance now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, so I'm Seth Seamus, and I'm a co-lead for the Finance Solutions Design team, along with Daniel Zimmer from Climate Kick. And I'm going to tell you what we mean by integrated landscape finance. Let's get the slide up. And then how we've been operating in this area as a design team, and where and how we've been operating, and then hand it over to Aaron Brunner from Conservation International to give an example of this work. So integrated landscape finance, as we're describing it, identifies and funds a set of investments in a landscape that, if funded, would shift the landscape towards its vision for transformation. We refer to the set of investments as a landscape investment portfolio. And integrated landscape finance is essentially the process to get there. So this is a simplistic diagram that's meant to illustrate where we're operating within this finance system, this integrated landscape finance system. And you can think of the work, I'm just going to use the acronym ILF for brevity. ILF is attracting a diversity of finance sources. So that's public, philanthropic, commercial, and everything in between, and steering this finance towards where it's needed in the landscape, spatially and in a particular sequence over time, in order to produce a transformation that's aligned with the vision of the stakeholders. So between the funds coming in and the impact, it's not just the landscape partnership, as Tom is describing, this partnership entity, but it's also a set of financial services and capabilities that are unique to this particular approach. And in the context of our work, we sometimes refer to this as a facilitator coach role for finance, but it also includes technical elements that can include project identification and development, and deal brokering, and finance mechanism development, among others. So our hypothesis as a team was, and it continues to be, that the building of this cohort of intermediaries is a key scaling pathway to get to 1,000 landscapes and to get these landscapes, these portfolios funded. So we're interested in figuring out how best to not only build the capacity of the partnerships to do this work, but also to co-design tools and resources that can be used by both the partnerships as well as these intermediary service providers. So in the first phase of work, we created a kind of laboratory where we took on these roles ourselves to see what we could learn and produce that could support the building of the field. I should also say the design team is also interested in the enabling environment around all of this, understanding that even a perfect set of tools and resources isn't going to solve these issues, if the investment in policy environment isn't right. But we're not going to talk about that right now. Now we're focusing on the direct landscape work. All right, so this work, this first set of landscapes, we're calling the Landscape Finance Accelerator. It focused intensively on a small number of landscapes to support the development of these robust pipelines of landscape investments that were coordinated into portfolios. And in each of these cases, we had on-the-ground partners and representatives of the design team playing this facilitator, coach, and technical roles. In Malawi, we worked with the Mount Mulanje Conservation Trust, and the facilitator coaches were the Regenerative Development Group and Sustainable Finance Coalition. And in Vietnam, SNV was the on-the-ground partner, and Regenerative Development Group played the intermediation role. And in Mexico, Rainforest Alliance is the on-the-ground partner, and in Alto Mayo, it is Conservation International. And Eco-Agriculture Partners played the primary intermediation roles for in Mexico and in Peru, and also in Alto Mayo, the Capital Continuum Advisors played a very critical technical support role. All right, so as far as the process of what we did in these places, very roughly, these contexts, were very different from each other, which is another conversation. But they had different starting points, but this is the general sense. So we had a landscape finance assessment that we went through in these landscapes, and then through that we went through the development of a strategy where we identified activities that we needed to be funded and tried to figure out how they would be funded. And when there was demand and there were resources, we also worked on the development of finance mechanisms. These engagements were relatively short term. So while we moved in the direction of funding mobilization, that's going to be a longer term project. And Aaron's going to give some detail of what this actually looked like in a particular place. So in the process of doing this, we developed a set of tools and resources that we're now continuing to build on and refine within this design team. In organizations within our groups, such as Rainforest Alliance and Common Land and CI, are taking these experiences and resources and adapting them to their own organizational contexts. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it off to Aaron to talk about the work in Alto Mayo. Aaron?
Okay, thanks, Seth. Everybody. Okay. Okay, there we go. So this is a project in the central forest of Peru. It's a landscape quite a lot like Tom started with. Illustrating that is a place that has a protected forest. That's the dark green. It's a state protected forest, the Alto Mayo protected forest with lots of endemic species. There's a strong presence of indigenous communities, Yawahun in this case, that's the orange area. There's a big road right up through the middle. That's the dotted line. And there are something like 30 subbasins, all of which take water from up in the forest, or many of which do, and feed agriculture, including coffee, cocoa, rice, a bit of palm oil, and a few other things. In other words, this is a place that like we've been setting the context for, requires in some way integrated management if it's going to function to the benefit of people and nature. One thing to note about this place, and in fact the point of departure here, is that San Martin over the past maybe 5 years, or even a little bit longer ago, went through a stakeholder-led process to chart a sustainable development path. In this case, it got formalized as a low emissions rural development path. But that is a path that lays out in pretty specific detail what activities and for whom and how the department can develop to do it sustainably. So in that context, the point of departure for this work is the following. San Martin, in this case, the Alto Mayo landscape as part of it, has a sustainable development vision, but outside of the scope of a lot of really good projects, big ones in some cases, the underlying pressures are still pushing most small farmers to do unsustainable stuff, and often for not a great livelihood. And so unless we can find a way to push the system at a bigger scale, development is going to continue a lot the way that it does, kind of, unless we can intervene in it. So with that in mind, then the intention of this finance work was to think about a set of the transitions prioritized by stakeholders and adopted by the government in San Martin, and look at what they cost, but also what they benefit, and to whom and when, and to use that information to try to identify the most viable sets of financing mechanisms to bring new money into the landscape, and also in particular to bring it into spots that would free up people to make big changes. So I'll just illustrate this in 2 graphics for this purpose, and we can talk about details if it's useful later. The first is to show you a snapshot of the economic results. Like I said, we took a set of the transitions prioritized in this participatorily designed strategy that includes transitions for maybe 30,000 farmers, the effective management of the Alto Mayo protected forest, which is a couple 100,000 hectares, and a bunch of other stuff. The benefits that look like they would come from that are in the green on the right. I'm going to pause for 1 second because I see a comment saying that someone can no longer see the presentation slides. Shannon, do you want me to continue?
Yes, continue. Amaya, I'll send you a message.
Okay. All right. Sorry. So the benefits that we ended up quantifying are there in green on the right, the costs in the red on the left. And the simple central conclusion of this is that this is a good economic choice for San Martin. That is, investing something like $40 million US generates a bit above 70 million for San Martin, a net benefit of about 30 million US, mostly to small farmers. And most of that money would go, as you might expect, to farmers' transition costs, including equipment, their own time, things like that, as well as to conservation in the Alto Mayo protected forest and technical assistance to support transition. The second thing we did with that economics information in hand was to think about a capital continuum, and you heard that name from Seth already, a capital continuum to increase financial flows. And the idea of a capital continuum is that if we think about finance in multiple periods, we can be as strategic as possible with the scarce grant and philanthropic money we get to try to draw in other forms of capital and increase over time the amount of money we can draw into this system. So, along the top, you might have an incubation period of a few years, an implementation period, a stabilization period, and finally a capital market integration period, which, you can see we haven't thought too much about yet because that's the full thing. But the idea is that we've been mapping the cost of this transition onto this continuum. So that in an early period, for example, we're thinking about donor funding, public funding to fund high risk early stage activities, proof of concepts. That is, can we support farmers to make transitions that may have a short-term cost, but in the long term are beneficial? And how much are they benefiting from that? Are they happy with it? That kind of stuff, alongside a protected area conservation and what ecosystem service flows might come from that. In a second period, thinking about taking those proof of concepts somewhat to the private sector, strategic private capital, to increase the amount of money available and show that private sector can maybe begin to get involved. And in a third period, maybe formalizing that a bit more and trying to draw in maybe new institutions that can change the entire operating environment and make it much easier for private sector or other non-standard forms of investors to get involved here in the sustainability. And I'm just going to stop there and sort of say that's the idea of this, as it is with other frameworks like this, that over time, with economic information in hand, and planning over time, again, to try to be as strategic as possible with scarce grant money, we're aiming to draw more money into kind of key points in this system to drive transition. So like Seth said, that this is one of multiple bits of the trialing we've been doing of the Finance Accelerator, and also an illustration of some of the tools that we've been developing and trying to formalize and make usable. I think that's all for me. Thank you very much. And I'm not sure who picks up now. Tom again, I think.
Great. Thanks so much, Aaron. And thanks, Seth. So for our last presenter, I'll present Amaya Webster, and she's going to talk about Terrasso and the digital platform that we've co-designed with partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, everybody, for joining us today. As Tom said, my name's Amaya Webster. I work for Tech Matters. It's a nonprofit that develops technology to address large-scale social and environmental challenges. And we do this by creating technology or connecting powerful technology with the communities that need it most. Now, I'm the program manager for the Terrasso project, which develops open source, free technologies that people working in conservation, sustainable development, and regenerative agriculture can use to more effectively combat climate change and its effects on communities, especially those communities that are under-resourced. The Terrasso project came about because of Tech Matters membership in the 1,000 Landscapes for 1 Billion People project coalition, and the need for common reusable tools identified and articulated by the founding organizations of the coalition. The Terrasso team spent a year and a half collaborating with co-design partners from all over the world, which are illustrated by this map that's on the screen now. And we worked with them to learn from them and what challenges they were facing on the ground in conservation space, and then find, and in some cases actually develop, tools that they felt would really help them be more successful. So personally, I find this very interesting, but it doesn't actually answer the question, what exactly Terrasso is. Terrasso is a software platform that we often refer to as a toolkit. Users create an account, and then they have access to tools and resources for data collection and sharing, mapping and visualization, and storytelling. And now we're going to take a bit of a closer look, but if you want to check it out on your own, the link to the Terrasso website will be shared with everybody in the chat. So to kick us off, Terrasso users have access to 2 types of data collection tools. There's our newest tool, which is the Land PKS Soil ID app, and that helps people identify the types of soil that they have in order to learn like which crops would be most suitable for them to grow, and also helps them to make better and more sustainable land management decisions. And the link to Land PKS will also be shared in the chat. And then there's Kobo Toolbox, which Terrasso users can access directly from their Terrasso account. Kobo is one of Terrasso's technical partners, and it's been around for a while. It can be used for collecting, analyzing, and managing data for surveys, monitoring and evaluation, and research. And one of the really cool things about it is it works online, but it's also offline compatible, which can be really helpful, especially in areas where there isn't strong internet or Wi-Fi connection. And then, did the slide change? No. One moment. There we go. So once a user has uploaded their data, or collected their data, I should say, they can then upload that data to their landscape profile on their Terrasso account. And that way, people that they're collaborating with on their projects and can also see and interact with, download all of the data that's now been uploaded to their account. And there's a ton of file types that are supported in this. You can upload CSV documents, GeoJSON, KML, PDF, PowerPoint. I mean, the list just goes on and on. And then once data is stored in a Terrasso account, depending on that type of data, users can then make visualizations. So if it's like location-based data, such as a GeoJSON, you can make a polygon, like actually create a polygon in your area. Or if it's a CSV file, you can make like a map of plotted points. And all of this is really good, if you want to showcase the area where you're working or maybe track progress of work. Well, there's a bunch of things that can be used for, but those are 2 that I've seen it used for a fair amount. And then tying all of this together is our flagship tool, which is Terrasso Story Maps. And it's a very simple but powerful story mapping tool. For those of you who aren't familiar with story mapping, story maps are a lot like PowerPoint presentations, but they're based on locations and are usually much more engaging. They're a great way to communicate about your work, raise awareness, attract funders, and a lot more. With our story mapping tool, like all of our tools, it's free and it can be used without additional training or special skills like ArcGIS knowledge. And now I am going to demo what can be done with the story map. So this is an example that was created by Conservation International Guyana, and it tells the story about Georgetown's challenges with coastal erosion and flooding and the work that they're doing to combat this, both through coastal expansion and creating a stronger seawall. And they're doing this by using the mud that drains from the Amazon basin down to the coast and then planting mangroves. Their story map is a very complex example and shows, what is possible when you have all the time to work on it. But what's so great about the story mapping tool, besides being free and easy to use, is that it can be used to tell almost any story you have, as long as you have a story to tell. A story map can be as simple or as complex as you want to make it. You add in your narrative, you choose any pictures, video, or animations that you have, if you have them. If you've created maps within your Terrasso account, you can add those onto your story map. It's really your choice, and you have all of the control. This particular story map is conservation focused, but yours doesn't have to be. Other users have created stories about health crises, civil rights violations, even personal successes, to name a few. If you have time, I would highly, highly, highly recommend visiting Story Mapping Repository on the Terrasso app. They're really interesting, they're really inspiring, and I don't know, every time I see new ones, I get excited. The goal of the story mapping tool is to give a voice to anyone that wants to be heard, which is something, I think we all believe pretty powerfully in. And so, if you've got something to share, then this is a great tool for you. And I should also say that, anyone on the Terrasso team would be happy to jump on a call or, work with you over email if you want to get started on creating your own and have questions. And with that, I will wrap it up. But instead of hearing closing remarks about Terrasso from me, I am going to share what somebody who's one of our earliest users said about his experience with it.
So, whenever you mention Terrasso, I'm excited. And as an organization, we are really happy because Terrasso is really helping us to not just capture the story, but as well tell it to the world. Because it's giving us a platform where I'm able to give details of where the farmer is, what is on the farm, and what's the progress from there. And again, I can be able to display this to the whole of the world. It was very hard for us to tell the story before this, but now that we have it, we feel very much, our lives made easy in telling the story. And that's what I can say about Terrasso as an organization. Personally, I feel very good because to make my life easy in sharing stories about how far I might be able to reach the farmers, what are they doing, and I can be able to say after a number of years, this is where we started, this is where we are. Thank you.
I do want to do a quick round robin to each of the different teams to give a little bit of more information of how folks can each engage with your respective tools. So a quick 1 to 2 sentence just response of what's available now or what's the best way to engage. So I'll start with Zena because she was the first one to start. And then Zena, you can go ahead and pass to Seth and so on.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. So the best way to engage with the modules is going to the website that has been shared in the chat, where you can just download all the files. And if you have questions about using them, you can I'll also add my email address in the chat. You can send me an email if something is not clear to you. Seth.
Wonderful.
Yeah, you can get in touch with me. A lot of the tools we have are still a bit unpolished and in process. But when people get in touch, we share whatever we have, in the forms that they are. So, but they will often need a bit of contextualization. So, yeah, just get in touch with me and we can share what seems like appropriate for your situation.
Great. Amaya, can you let us know sort of what the best way is to get engaged with Terrasso? We have a lot of folks interested in story maps, how to get started, and sort of what the difference between the Terrasso platform as a whole is versus just story maps?
Sure. So I'd say the best way to get in touch with us is to shoot an email to either info@terraso.org, or you can email me directly at amaya@techmatters.org. We can answer questions, or we can set up a time, for a call and walk you through whatever questions that you have. So the story mapping tool is a part of the Terraso platform. So when you go to the Terraso app, you'll see, there's tools for the data collection tools. There's the data visualization tools. Like it's all there, and story mapping is a part of that.
Great. There's also a question about what kinds of initiatives can be displayed on Terraso. Can any initiative be displayed on Terraso? Or so I think it is specifically around the use of Terraso and story maps, but does it need to be a landscape initiative or that respond to a certain criteria, or
No, I mean,
that?
If you have a story to tell and you want to center it like in a location, then you absolutely can use it. As I was mentioning, like I've seen story maps that talk about somebody's vacation. I've seen story maps that talk about land rights. Obviously there's story maps around conservation and conservation efforts, but it's really just, it's a tool to help you communicate whatever it is that you want to share.
Great. Thank you, Amaya. There's a question, Zena. Oh, I see you're answering, but maybe you can share for the team about the in-person trainings for the ILM modules and how that works.
Yes, of course. So the question was when and where they will take place. Well, that depends on the landscape facilitator or the landscape convener. It's not something that we organize. We make the materials available for you to organize it yourself. At the moment, we don't have more support available to guide, like to train you in the whole process of delivering that session. But if you have questions, of course, you can reach out to me. So that's how it works. Is that answering your question?
I think that does answer the initial question that was in the chat, but maybe Christian can respond afterwards as well. Can you talk a little bit more, Zena, about the 5-day training for facilitators, and if that's available now, or what that would look like if someone were interested?
Yes, so the 5-day in-person training is about strengthening your facilitation skills, and we have the design available. So if you're interested in that, you can reach out to us, and we might be able to organize it in a specific region, but it depends on the funding.
Great. There is a request for Aaron to share his email address around financial resource questions, but perhaps Seth, we can sort of aggregate if there is interest. We'll be able to reach out to you. There are a couple of broader questions around ILM and bioregions. One person, Korean, was curious to know about the approach to defining the limits of a landscape and how it relates to bioregions. Tom, I think we have a little bit of time. I don't know if you can shed a bit of light on that question.
Yeah, I mean, the way we approach it, the landscape is a social and ecological construct that is developed locally by landscape partnerships to define that. There's so many different ways to define a landscape boundary. You could have watershed boundaries, you could have bioregions. So the things that you saw today are meant to be scalable across multiple types of boundaries that have been identified by a landscape partnership. I don't know if Seth, you want to add anything to that, but that's a brief description.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Tom, that's how we, it's defined kind of by the stakeholders. It's how we basically define landscape. Yeah, it could be ecological or cultural or administrative in some cases, like in Aaron's example, like this was an administrative boundary, Alto Mayo. As far as bioregion goes, again, people have different definitions for these terms. My understanding is that bioregion tends to be a larger area than landscape tends to be, although there's probably overlap. Yeah, like the places I've seen, for example, like Cascadia in the US is like this very like large area that goes up through the Northwest US, like up through Canada. That's probably larger than generally we would say is a landscape. Like within that, we would have maybe multiple landscapes. But there's a lot of overlap, and there's certainly a lot of overlap in approaches to planning, and approaches to financing. So we're work closely with people who work on bioregional issues.
Thank you, Tom and Seth. There's a question related to the cost of these tools and resources. So maybe if each of you, the presenters, could just give a quick, brief overview of related costs or how that functions if someone were interested in engaging. Zena.
There's no cost of downloading the file, so you can use it freely and adapt it freely.
Great, thank you. Since I'll turn it over to Ameya, since that is a bit more, Terrasso is a bit more concrete as opposed to what's available for the landscape finance. But Ameya, can you talk a bit about Terrasso?
I can. So Terrasso is grant and donation fund based, so that's how we're funded. And as a result, if you need access to our tools, they are available currently at no cost.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. We have a few minutes left. I'm going to turn it over to Tom. If there are any additional questions that you'd like to pop into the Q&A, we will be working to answer those and send it around in our follow-up email to all the attendees. So thank you to everyone. Tom, over to you.
Thank you so much, Shannon. And thank you to our presenters today. And thank you to everybody who showed up for this webinar. There's a recording that will be made online. I'm going to talk about kind of the ways that you can join us. First of all, how should I do this, Shannon? Should I show the slide and people can start to download some of these resources?
Well, we'll share this slide
Okay.
in the follow-up. So maybe just the last bullet points of how people can join us.
Got it. Yeah. So first of all, please join us. So like I said, this is an open collaboration. If you are interested in being part of 1000 Landscapes, there's a number of different ways that you can join us. You first of all, most immediately fill out the survey after this. You can visit our website at landscapes.global, and you can see all the tools and resources that have been discussed there. And like we said, they are free and open to access. We have a great newsletter that we just started on LinkedIn called the Landscape Ledger. If you're a landscape finance aficionado or want to know more, please join us there and sign up for it. You can become a member of our core design team meeting. So the three groups that you saw today all have what we call core design teams that are focused around the resources that we've discussed today. And we're always welcoming new members to play a role, to learn, and if you have your own insights into the tools and resources, you can join us. We have a Facebook and LinkedIn place that you can join discussions and dialogue with us. So please follow us there. And you can contact me if you have broader questions. If you're interested in becoming a partner of 1000 Landscapes, again, we are an open partnership. If you have something to bring to this collective, we're happy to identify how we can be mutually beneficial and how we interact. So there's definitely roads there. So please contact me if you want to be a partner of 1000 Landscapes. And if you're working in a landscape, let us know what you're doing and how these tools can support you. Let us know what you'd like to see. We're always welcome to hear feedback and join the movement for landscape innovations and management. So with that, I think I'll end the session. Shannon, do you want to add anything there?
Just a quick note about the survey that you'll see as you exit the webinar. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us. We plan on doing a couple of deep dives into our tools and resources in 2025. And we'd love to have you join us for that, especially if you are excited about what you've seen here today. So if you could just fill out the survey, that will help inform how we can get in touch with you and also how we can engage you in the next couple of deep dive webinars that we have scheduled for the first part of 2025. So we appreciate your feedback related to that. With that, I think we can close the webinar. So thank you, Tom. Thank you, everyone.